I'm the vice president for the hub, and
Harish, I'm the treasurer for the club.
wait, can you guys hear us? Can you guys hear us? And we the mic.
Oh, it's right.
No, not the mic.
Oh, without the. Okay, should be fine.
So in today's workshop, we're gonna try a little different approach. We're gonna learn a few basic, obviously a few basic front-end technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React.js, as well as Tailwind CSS. But we are going to do something a little interesting, which is to code up the same project over and over using the different tools. So you can gauge how the tools are different, what their purpose is, and how you can utilize them for your next projects. Okay, so yeah, that's the agenda today. The first, we're going to use something called Project IDX for sharing all of the code files and for you to provide a coding environment to you guys. It's a project developed by Google, and it's like your code editor, but it just has capability to host it in browser, and then you can share it with other people. It's very, very similar to VS Code. So for any of the folks who've used it, you guys should be pretty comfortable with that. Then we'll go into our phase one, which is just very, very bare bone basic structuring using HTML, basic styling using CSS, as well as, if time permits, a bit of JavaScript. And for the phase two, we're going to code the same thing again, but this time using React and Tailwind CSS. Lastly, we'll just test it out and then give you guys opportunities to add your own features, play around, and explore with things, and guide you through the projects if you plan to make something. Okay, so IDX. If you go to Google and try to look up Project IDX, you should be taken to this link, or you guys can even follow the link right from here. So this is the Project IDX I was talking about. It's basically, if I have to put it this way, it's like a web-hosted VS Code. That's what it is going to look like. If you guys want to just follow along and set it up, that would be super great, so you have access to it. So just click on Get Started. And it should take you to this screen. For some of you, it might look slightly different, prompting you to create a project. And if you want, please feel free to set up an HTML project. If not, we're going to share the code files too.
If anyone needs any help, we'll be here. At the same time, we would suggest you to create an account, because if you follow along, it gets easier for you to understand. So yeah, once you guys are ready, then we'll proceed with.
So I want to bring to your attention a little bit about why we want to use Project IDX, especially for this workshop. What the project has been doing so far is providing you a lot of ready-to-use templates, like templates for AngularJS, Vue.js, React.js, and all such varied web app frameworks and templates for those. There's also backend, mobile, AI, ML. So tons and tons of templates for you guys to readily use without having to download or set up anything on your local machine. So that saves a ton of development time, especially when hosting a workshop, and makes the code super easy to be shared. Okay, then for those who want to set up an HTML template, let's try to find it. So in the templates file, you should be able to see a simple HTML template. Just click on it and name your app whatever you would love to name it. Say I would just do pizza. Yeah. Okay, are you guys following along? Are you guys all there? Okay, so just hit on create and it would take a few minutes, but it will set up all of those files and folders and everything for you. Meanwhile, just a quick show of hands, and if I could gauge just the audience, who's a freshman? Okay, who's a sophomore? Okay, and who's like upper division and grad? Okay,
How many of you have experience with front-end
Front-end.
development?
Just using all the JavaScript count.
Okay. I know, yeah.
good enough. And has anybody used React before? Okay. So this is what it did for you. It created an index.html file, a JavaScript file, a README file. If you guys have used GitHub before, a README file is sort of like a documentation page on every GitHub's main page. So this is what that file is. There's also a style.css file, and just this folder, which it's just like something that IDX does to maintain like all of those like dependencies and stuff. So that's that. So today we're just concerned about index.html, style.css, and main.js files. Are you guys all set up to here? Okay, perfect.
No worries. We just-
Guys, if something broke for you and you're not at the same page as us with the 4 files created, raise your hand, we'll help you to set it up, okay, guys? So if something is not working, just let us know. Okay.
All right, then I think we're good to move. So moving on to phase one, we just added you to the project, the ready code file that we had set up. Did you guys by any chance get an email or something? If not, just use this link and all of you should already be added to it. And just let us know if you are facing like any error screen, because that means you're not added and it's just a quick fix that we'll have to make as the hosts of the project. Did you guys receive an email? It's just for my knowledge purpose, like no, right? Okay. So share the slides. Let me know.
Yeah,
Because we have.
It's fine. Any of the- So checking, when you check in, that's, and yes, so we added your ASU emails. So whatever email that was linked to your event passes, that's the email that we used. So make sure you try to like sign in with that, like click on the link through that browser. Let me share the PPT really quick.
Excuse me, are you checking? It's- Yeah.
To the slides.
Yeah, in general chat. Okay, so I just shared the file in the Discord channel. It's in general channel, and it must be sent by person. But you also like just drop in the links too. No, he's just still checking. I can
One of
just.
them check.
Okay.
But we do have a lot of pizza. Everyone will get more than one. Yeah, sorry about that. That was a bit of misleading advertising from us.
No, it's good. I was just like, damn, samosa.
Yeah, me too. Next time we'll get. And it could be,
Yes, awesome. Make sure you're talking to your. Oh.
I've also added the direct links to the project if you guys wanna do. stuff. It's in the same message.
Wait, so what?
So if you go to Discord, GDSE's Discord, and go to the general channel, and should be the latest message sent. It has link to the slides as well as both of the projects for today. We're going to work on the first link, first, like right now. Yeah. Okay, quick show of hands if you guys were able to access it. Anybody of you facing errors?
we'll help you guys.
I think it's just because their emails weren't added. Totally is. This- Record of the-
Yes.
नहीं, इसमें मेरा ID भी- जी। Could you refresh it? Should be. Anybody else seeing like an error screen? There wasn't.
Okay, let me add you.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I. I just. I already had prior like jobs. I didn't do anything with that, so definitely start a project. But it is because.
Yes.
Or with right now. You help me
Oh.
really? Not.
Problem is that
HVJ.
Oh, I see.
HVJ.
Yeah, I don't know. But
Okay.
it's really logging system.
People having error screens, just wait for like a few minutes, we just had.
Like functionality. So. Talk about other
Just sometimes it gets.
yeah, it's the guy. On it. It's like, way too good. It's alright, like, learned about SQL today. Like.
You wanna do one?
The other class is data structure. That's. That's the most important. One that you need to have. Packages. You know that one, so you.
PM.
Solve problems. Fine.
It's too.
And all major C's. And then not.
Only thing I'm not sure.
Because I'm stressing about it, such a hard.
Okay, people with the error screens, could you try reloading it? And make sure you signed in with the email associated with your Sundell
Yeah, we
sync.
just
Okay.
added you guys, so you should have access now.
Yes. You didn't wanna go to U of A? I think it sucks there, huh? It's what it is, honestly.
It's just. Okay, meanwhile, while we figure that out, I'll just talk a bit more about HTML and everything. Okay, so today's stack, I've already mentioned this, and today, for the first phase, we're going to work with HTML, CSS, and if time permits, JavaScript. So you notice this like interesting Halloween inspired emojis? There's a reason for that. So HTML, it's a markup language, which basically provides a whole skeleton of how everything would be structured on your web application. Now, what do I mean by markup languages? Those kinds of languages has this one peculiar trait that they are always defined by tags. What are tags exactly? Just hold on for one more slide and I'll get to it too. As far as CSS goes, its purpose is to just take whatever HTML you have and make it pretty, make it stylized, add color to it, add nice background, add shadows, whatever you wanted to create interesting animations. All of those things would be only possible, possible with CSS. And then JavaScript, well, that adds all the functionality to your web application. It's all of those logic blocks that you write in your code. Basically, it say for example you want to add this functionality that it takes you to it basically say counts the number of times you've pressed a button. So that logic is written in JavaScript. So all the logic part is in JavaScript. All the styling and beautification, that's all by your CSS, and the basic structure is by your HTML. Okay, so I came across this very nice cheat sheet by ilovecoding.org, and it does an excellent job at introducing HTML to every fellow beginners. So HTML, it basically stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's a markup language similar to a lot many that exists. So I was talking about how markup languages have this trait about it being defined and returned using tags. So what are tags? Tags are the underlying structure in any of the code files for this kind of languages. Say right here, you can see a tag called, say, name. As you can see, it has, for HTML, the way it is formatted is there's two arrow, those called like brackets. So there's like two arrows, and there's the closing, the starting tag, and then there's ending tag. The starting tag has just this very basic format with like a closing arrow, like an opening arrow, a closing arrow, and the name of the tag, as well as for like as opposed to the closing one, which just has this one slash right before the name of the tag. So that's about opening, closing tags. There's okay, let's go to the basic structure of any HTML code file. For any HTML, a general format that each one of those follow is there's a tag that defines the document type. There's HTML tag. You notice that it has an opening and a closing tag. And there's so this tag is where all of your HTML code will be housed. Then there's head tag. Head tag is the place where all of your code about the title as well as the style sheet that you connect, all of those things go into your head tag. And then there's body tag. Now the body tag will house everything that you see on the web on a web application. So another thing is there are something called self-closing tags. So those follow a little different format where the closing tag just ends there. Like the slash just comes right before the ending arrow bracket, and that just basically tells you that this is the end of that tag. So it's doing something very similar to this, except the format is a little different. The purpose for those kind of tags is sometimes you don't really want to define any children inside of your parent tags. So you just end it up right here to make the code look more cleaner. There's also some kinds of tags that don't need closing, like that are generally usually returned in that format too. Okay. And these are some of the very frequently used tags, and let me just walk you guys right through it. There's something called H tags, which is H1 all the way till H6. That is just your heading tags. It makes your text look bold, and it gives a little structure to your website. Say heading 1 is the one with the highest like weightage. It's the biggest like heading 1, followed by heading 2, heading 3, all the way till heading 6. Then there's paragraph tags, which wraps all of your text in paragraph. It's just a different kind of tag to help you better structure your code. Then there's div tag that you will frequently use. Those stand for divider tags, I believe. So that just helps you divide your code in different parts as well. And you'll see that briefly. Then there's another few tags called the list ones. Then there's special formatting ones. There's some media tags to include your images, videos, audios, and so on, as well as there's HR and BR. So HR is just horizontal rule. So that creates a horizontal line. And then BR is your break tag that just pushes all the code after, like all the text after that or image after that to the next line. So that's that for basics of HTML. Do you have any? Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
What is the command for like comments?
So the structure is, let me just show it to you. It's basically an opening command followed by exclamation, two like hyphens. That's the start. And then there's end for ending it. It's like two hyphens and then a closing one. So commenting in HTML. And this is the format that I was talking about. So you start with an opening arrow bracket, an exclamation mark, and two like hyphens. This is the code. You see the tiny thing. So this is everything between these like two hyphens is what would be commented. Any other questions? You guys are following along. So maybe I'll get back to this a little later. Before that,
I mean, just, or maybe you wanna plug in this.
Yeah.
It's in video. Oh, that project is not loading, so we're just gonna.
it's not loading in. Yeah. Thanks.
You're still covered.
Yes. Sure.
Is it because?
I don't know.
Wi-Fi, so if you wanna try my, I'll do it.
Which
You guys have.
You
have-
you wanna try that?
Try yours.
try yours.
Is it working?
I mean, for bringing this
Just plug in yours. Well, which one specifically?
Yeah, because it's also in video.
Yeah, yeah.
It's because of the amount of people we shared it with.
Because you learn. Oh, because you can.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I can also try opening mine. Hold on.
Honestly, we should have had a backup. Open mine.
I opened mine, it just asked me to reload it.
Why is it?
It's like too many.
Give us 1 second, guys.
Sorry,
IDX
the
is kind of-
Wi-Fi is super bad and IDX is just acting up as well. Meanwhile, I have a little like task for you guys to like start exploring HTML by yourself. If you have like any editor installed or even just your notepad, try to understand how the basic structure of HTML works. You can go to the slide and it has exact details of how it should happen. So maybe you can start exploring some tags on your own. Okay, I'll just.
Yeah.
Wala, may bit of HTML.
It's for everyone.
I agree.
Okay, so for some reason, Project IDX isn't responding. So we'll just go and do all the manual labor and learn on the go, I guess. So if you have any code editor installed, that should do. Or even if you just created your IDX and set up a simple HTML, you can code it there as well. It's just for me, my VS Code is still active, so I'm just going to use that. So for the basic structure, there's a shortcut in VS Code. I am not like I know for IDX it created all the dummy code for you already. So you should be seeing it on your screen right now. It's under the file called index.html, similar naming convention as what I created just right now. If you guys are doing it on VS Code, there's a shortcut for it. If you just do this, it will create all of the boilerplate for you. So this is what we talked about: the HTML tag, the head tag, the body tag, and all of those tags. So for Project IDX, as you code along, you should see like a web browser in your environment on your right side. That's the place where all of your changes would be reflected. If you try to if you make any changes, just try to refresh if it doesn't pop up. If on refreshing, it should change it up. I know that it does create just a simple one with a button or something like that. Just try changing the name of the button or something. See where if you're able to locate how a button is defined. And also try to change the heading one. Try to find the header tag and see if you can like locate that and change that. Okay. For people doing it locally, how do you open up the same web browser thing? It's pretty simple. Just go to wherever you saved your file. Excuse. Okay, so this is where if you open up the file, it should just display it right there. Right now, we don't have any tags in there. So right now, we just have the title tag, which gives the title to the document right here. Right now, it's calling document. Say we name it as my app and refresh it. You see that would be reflected. Now, well, our initial plan was to create the pizza delivery app that we designed in the first workshop, but seems like that would not be possible. But if you still have access to that like that project from Project IDX, that's where all the code is. You can try to explore it on your own. I'll just try to do my level best to just do something similar. So as uh, from the cheat sheet, you must have remembered there's a particular way we try to define the headers, which is, let's say, H1 text, and we say Sparky's Pizza. And you'll see that pop up. No, I'm just looking at this. Two. Sparky's delivery. As you can see, the formatting is very, like the way it appears is very low quality because that is not the job of HTML. That's where CSS comes in. HTML will just give you the basic bare bones structure. So So here I introduced a div tag. Div tag basically just tries to break your code down into chunk and tries to group a few things together. You'll see why this comes in very handy while using CSS. A little, like in just a little bit, but you can basically you'll be able to access all the components inside of the div just by referencing to this div. So yeah, that's that. Maybe we'll try to just create a table and try to create and again, you don't have to code along if you still have access to the project that we just shared. It has a code similar to this, just a little bit more detailed. So let's say I want to add an image here. Sorry, C equals. Let me just go ahead and download an image. So how do you add an image to it? The way you do it is just create an image tag. And as you can notice here, it's a self-closing tag just because I don't plan to add any of the children components in it. So here you'll just enter your source, which is pizza.jpg. And if you want, and in certain circumstances, the image might not pop up. So you might want to add like an alternate text. So say pizza image. And your image will pop up. And you want to say add a paragraph tag which says say veggie pizza. and you want to just mention the price of it, say dollar like 15.9. And maybe add another pizza. So here, I don't think it's mentioned in the cheat sheet. DD. Yeah. Okay, so this is sort of a little like quick way to just give a little basic structure to the app. If you can, let me see if my not. Uh, yeah, so this was basically how you
I just had a question. What was the TD do?
so good question. I was just talking about it. So the table tag, what it does is it's a place for you to define your whole table. You see the TR tag that defines all the rows, and the TD tag defines the cells in the row. So your say this TD tag, that is basically for the first row. This is the first cell, and this is the second row, and this is its like its
Second is
cell.
Or does it divide like on the?
it's like a
So-
container where you put data in.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You have to use table for everything?
No, you can definitely use div. I just wanted to introduce different kind of tags. I don't think I can find a quick cheat sheets for it. But that's how you basically type out the HTML. I would not take up too much time on HTML. Because we still have to cover React and stuff. But if you look at the code file and try to play around with it, say for example as a task, just try to add 2 more pizzas to it. You guys could attempt it right now, and maybe change the image in the pizza or change the name of it.
Yes, we do. But the problem is that we're using project ideas in that one. So that's why we were avoiding. Yeah, that's. Well, no, we're not sponsoring, but like, kind of, and it's also that like project ideas in development. Yeah. That's not. No, this is not. This is not
Yes.
because like so she hasn't
There's no way
set
to.
up his code to use HTML because she doesn't do that. But we did that in IDX, but then the IDX is crashed because like we shared it on the project with a bunch of people and then because it's still in development. Thank you so much though. Oh, you mean the autofill? She did that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Get the project
So,
started, right?
Like, just like the
To get started,
tables,
yeah, to the project, yeah.
instead of all of these table tag, you could just replace all of those with divs and try to give them unique identifier names that we will just like give them like right now. And they should do the same purpose when they should serve the same purpose as soon as you start adding CSS. But if you just want to keep it plain simple HTML, I still prefer to have it as a table just because it will display it in a little different way. Let me just quickly also, do you guys still have access to the Project IDX project?
Ours or the one that you,
No, the one that we shared.
that one's not working. HTML.
It's a setting up project. Oh, crashed.
Still loading.
Crashed.
It crashed for everyone. It's actually because IDX is still in development, it's still a beta version. So
Yes, we shared it
I
with
think
two.
since we shared it with a bunch of people, it's crashing. And even we're not able to open the project.
Oh,
All the code is gone right now.
Okay, so let me just like try to demonstrate like how basic structuring of CSS works, and then we can just jump into React because we still have the code working for that one. Um, Before that, do you guys understand HTML and how it is like generally returned, like how you code it up? Or do you guys have any questions or something? Okay. So moving on to CSS.
Yeah.
For coming back to CSS, CSS, its job is again to make everything look very pretty. The way you write CSS is, let me start here. There's three ways to incorporate CSS into your HTML code file. One is to just mentioning it inline. Let's say, yeah, one of them. Okay, let's say I want to make this H1 text color yellow. So I could just mention it inline as a style attribute and mention color and say I want it to be yellow. Maybe orange. So this is one way of incorporating CSS, which is just by mentioning a style attribute right inside your HTML tags. The other way is to define a style tag right in your header. So how do you do it? Just go inside your head tag and create a style tag. And here you add your selector, your property, and your value. So now what are the selectors? Selectors are how you basically choose which HTML tag you want to apply your formatting to. So there's multiple ways to do it. To start off with, the first way is to just go by the tag. Say you want to color every H1 tag in your code file yellow or like blue. So you just define H1 tag as what you want to change. You do like a curly parentheses, and your property say, I would say, let's try fonts, well, font style maybe, and let's say I want it to be Arial. font style. Oh, this is because it is font style. Yeah, sorry, it was font family. And so as you can see, we selected every H tags by the type of tag and defined the property. So what kind of styling you want to add, and then just the exact like way you want to format it. So there's selectors, there's property, and their values. And this was the second way you can add it to your code. And the third way, and the most popular out of it all, you would see this happening almost all the time in the industry, is creating something called stars.css file and just linking it right here as a link tag in your header. So here, we can talk about the link tag as well. It's just a way for you to link some files or any other external references like Google Fonts eventually if you want to include that in your file and in your code. So href is just the link, the reference to your style sheet or any of the code files that you want to include. And this is the third way to include and the most popular way to include the code in the CSS code and bring it to your HTML file. Now, I would like to go back to selectors, properties, and values. We talked about one of the ways, which was to just reference it using the type of tag, the property, the font, family, say, this one. And now moving on to a second way to do things, which is by referencing it using class names. Now, class names are a very popular way to group a lot of similar things together. So you can eventually style them all with the same styling without having to repeat your code. So the way you do it is, say, for example, you want to color all of the things inside this div in the same color. So you can just mention class equals and put in the class name, say headers. So this is the class name that you just gave to
Everyone
this whole div tag. And
same with CSS.
now you'll be able to
It's just like
reference
you
it.
ask it how to do this.
The way you reference it is by putting a dot, which makes the
For us.
compiler interpreter. Basically, your web browser know that you're referencing a class, and just put in your class name. And then it's the same. The value and
for
the
that,
property value pairs
we're gonna
stay the same. Say I want to color it this
Not
time
in 1 hour.
and set it up as say
I'm gonna
green.
go things very quickly because it's gonna be a very short project and I don't know.
Can you see? I don't think it's visible too well. Let's do red. And you see it changed. So that's your second way of doing. One through just the type of tags. The second is by giving it a class name. And the third is by giving it something called an ID name. Now, IDs are a little different than class names because for class names, you can basically repeat it multiple times. Let's say I can add it to just this one TD text. And if we try to refresh it, you can see that it applied the same formatting here as well. However, for for ID names, you can use it just once and it has to be
Everyone
unique.
is
So if I give
This
this div an ID of say
it should be.
like
Yeah, thank you.
text or something like that. Now, I cannot use this at any other place. it will, when you try to run it, it will start like throwing you errors and stuff. So that's one basic difference between class names and IDs. The way you reference your IDs is just, well, just putting pound, like a hash symbol or like pound symbol, and then just putting in the name, and then say we want to like say font style, and just bold it. So as you can see, this was bolded, or let's say underlined. So that's the three ways you reference the tags of your HTML. Now, some of the basic ones is some of the basic CSS properties that you normally use is you can change the color, the font family, so do all the different things with your fonts. You can align it in different ways. You can give different kinds of decorations. You can choose your background color. You can choose how you want to display it, and every possibility, everything that you can basically think about. And then there's pseudo selectors. So these are the different activities. It will basically show you different formattings for different activities. Say you want to change the color only when it hovers.
Tables.
So now when you hover over it, it will change the property. So that's a different way to do it. And I think we can have a And I think, do you guys have any questions for CSS or any more things that you would love to like learn about? Sorry, oh, yeah,
How do you control like the position on the page of certain,
I did not hear you.
how do you control like the position of certain like elements?
So there are multiple tags that you can do it with. There's one called, so for aligning the text, the way you center align, like left align, right align, you use something called text align. But you can additionally, on top of that, you can also align all of your different tags like divs, tables, and all of that using something called vertical align. And then there's another one called line. So there are two different tags that you can basically use to horizontally and vertically align it. You can also additionally align its content. Say you take your table and everything inside your table, you want it to be center aligned. So you take like there's another property where you can align all of your children elements as well. Any other thing? If not, we wouldn't waste any more time on this. So sorry for the malfunctioning. We did create a nice app. We'll share the link again. We still have the code. So we'll share it later, but I'll let Harish take over for React. Wait, let me just make sure there's no reverb.
Okay, so I'm gonna be talking about React. Before I go ahead, I'm just gonna ask you to check if you guys have access to the project because we shared that as well. It should be.
Let's not do that. It might break it. Ask them to do it.
I'm just gonna. I just want them to see if it's like there with. I just want you guys to check if you guys have it, so you guys can reference it later. Not that it's going to get started. Yes, okay.
Save me a slice though.
Oh, you want me?
I mean, you can still keep it if you want to.
I have it here. It's not right.
Alright, bro.
Okay, once you guys are ready. I'll be going over React, and so basically the project that was built is again built in Project IDX. So it uses Vue.js and React as well, both together. And for styling, we will be using Tailwind CSS. So why are we going to be talking about React? The reason is that it's a really popular web front-end development framework, which was developed by Meta, and it is also maintained by Meta. It is really popular. The community is really used, and that's beneficial because like you can use that community for help and debugging, right? Another thing is that it's a really fast component-based front-end development framework. So what what it means is that like basically you can create small components which you can reuse somewhere and then like basically build like a whole application. So you can just quickly like divide a single application into multiple components and then basically place them in different formats and like styles and basically get your project to work. Another reason is that why we're talking about React is that since it's popular, a lot of people want to learn it because it's like the industry standard. And as you can see, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, web, Netflix, Airbnb, and Uber, all of it was built by using React, the front end I'm talking about. So that, and then I'm gonna just quickly talk about the project structure first. So whenever you create like a React project, it will create like a bunch of folders and a bunch of files. Usually, the ones that we should be concerned about will be assets, source, and then some of the config files, right? The source file is the main file where you basically keep all of the codes. Here we, since it's a very small project, we haven't really followed the actual standard guidelines, but like I'll talk about it so that you guys know. Another thing, and then assets, and then we have the config files. Basically, config files are the basically the engines behind how something should work. So basically, I'll talk about those later in details and how like why like we talked about that. So that's the basic structure. Usually, what happens is whenever you're creating the front end, you create a folder called components. We don't have a folder called components here because like it was a very small project and we just have like two components, which is the card.jsx and the filter buttons.jsx. Usually when I was if I was creating like a bigger project, what I would do is I would create like a folder called components, right? And then I'll put all of my small components in them, and then the main file here is
I can show them.
okay, yeah. Later we can also we have like a bunch of bigger projects as well, so we can show you the structure. So that's pretty much it with the structure. Talking about a component, I think I already explained what a component is. Basically, it's like a small reusable piece of code that you can use at like different places. It can be a bunch of different types, but like usually there are like this thing called props, right? How if you we probably get all of you probably like know that like you can pass parameters to functions, right? So it's like if you use if you write a component that uses props or like parameters, you can pass it values. And let's say that like I created a card where like I have to basically render different pizzas, right? Pictures of pizzas, and then its descriptions, and then its prices, right? So for me to code everything one by one would be very hectic. It would take a lot of time. So that's why we use components. What we do is that we build one component and then we just reuse it. What we do is we just call it every time and with different names, different pictures, and different price, right? And then it will render it. I'll go on the code as well, but like this is the I think this is pretty much it for the slides, and then I'm gonna go in the code and I'll show you guys.
So in like a bigger project like this, there's like hundreds and hundreds of
Yeah.
components. So the way you try to do it is just create different pages. You can also create like different pages, and inside the pages have different components defined. That's a generic way have an industry like you try to define the structure of the project.
Let's hope this opens. If not, then I'll use my okay.
Okay,
Yep.
nice.
Nice. Okay. So this is the project that I created and the one that I was talking about. Okay, it's loading again. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this is the preview of what we will be talking about. Also, why we use Tailwind. Okay, so I think I talked about why we use React and what a component is. Now the last part would be Tailwind CSS and why is it important, why is it necessary, and why is it popular, right? Tailwind CSS, it's not like a very new thing. It is the same styling method that you use to style any other component. It's literally the CSS, but Tailwind CSS is like a utility-based framework. What it does is that it basically shortens all of that big code that you are writing and makes it very small, easily understandable, and easily comprehensible, shareable, and like you can easily debug it. I'll go. Okay, so talking about the structure that we had, usually what happens is whenever you create a new project, it will have like a main file that will be basically used to render all of the components, right? Because you need that one base file, and then basically you plug in all of those small components in that, and then it becomes like a web page. So here, if you see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 .jsx files. Now it's why also talking about why it's called .jsx is because it's a JavaScript file, but also an XML file. It's basically JavaScript XML. Now, what is XML? I'm not gonna go very deeper into that, but basically, earlier as well, whenever people or developers used to develop apps and web apps, they used to use something called a language called XML, which is basically the styling language, right? So JSX is basically the same thing but built upon JavaScript. So whenever you write your code, what it does is that it basically converts that into HTML, but you don't see it because for you're writing this normal JavaScript code, and what it does is it converts it into HTML and then styles it as well. So for us, the main file is that base file that I was talking about. Basically, here is where like we import all of our components, and then that is what that gets rendered on the screen. Now, if you see, I have these are like normal import for any project. This is not something that we need to talk about. It will be there for any project that you create. For the ones that we have here, this is the ones that I've imported. Here I'm importing index.css. Why? Is because this is the styling file that is used to basically style the whole background, not like each component, right? Because when you're building an app, let's say that you had a button, a card where it shows the description of the pizza, then you can use the component styling to use that, to style that. But we also have a background, right? You also have to create the whole environment for the app or for the website. That is done using index.css. So basically, if I wanted to change the background color of my app, then I can do that using index.css, and that's why we import index.css in our main file, because we want it to apply to the whole thing, not just one thing. That's that. And then here we're importing our element here. I wouldn't call it a component, and I'll explain why. But like here, I would call that I'm importing an element called home.jsx. Now this home is what I built here. This is just one page. It's also partly responsive. And what I did was that in my main file, I imported the home.jsx file. And in my home.jsx file, what I imported was this card and then filter buttons. So you see how it's like a network of files, right? Because if you were writing all of this in one single code page where you had to code it will become so huge that you can literally see this is just one single page, right? And this is just a very small, a very simple page, which is just one page. And I have this big of a code here. Now I'm importing it here, and then I have the card code here, then the filter code button code here. If I had to write all of it in one file, it would become really messy, and you wouldn't be able to easily handle it. That's why we basically divide everything in smaller chunks, which is components. So in the main file, I imported the home.jsx because that's what I want the app to render. Now I'll talk about what I have in the home file, right? I hope you guys are able to see it. Okay, yeah. So here, if you see, I have imported React, which is again, it's not me who's imported it. Honestly, that's again the structure of the file or the project. What I've imported is these two things, and also this. This is React Icons. It's basically like a library that you can use to. You don't have to You don't always need to follow the longer way to get pictures and SVGs and icons. There are certain libraries built because again, I talked about the community, there's a really huge community. A bunch of people have already built the stuff that you need, right? So you don't have to code it from scratch. So that's why we have I'm using this, this library called React Icons by Font Awesome. Basically what it is that it's like a collection of libraries that, a collection of different kinds of icons. So you can just basically, whatever project you're building, whatever you need, you just give it the name and it will import it for you. So you don't have to like go and download a picture, then paste it, import it. You don't have to do all of that stuff. Now, before I go into all of this, I'm just going to go to the component first. Talking about the card component, this is basically the card component, and if you see that this import is everywhere because this is like a React project, so that's why for every component, every element that we build, we have a React import. Now this FA heart is basically again the Font Awesome icon that I imported, which is this red heart, basically add this pizza to your favorites. But that is again one of the icons. Now talking about this thing, it is just like a function. What we do whenever we code a function, we code it, the syntax is to this. Basically, we write const, whatever the name is, then whatever we're going to pass to it. These are the things. How I mean, if you guys have done like any Java or Python, you must have used parameters, right? Basically, you pass like a variable, and then whatever value you pass, it works for you. So in the same way, here we're building we built a component, a function that basically receives the name, the description, the price, the path, and the path of the image, and then it renders wherever. Yeah.
So component is just the function that or runs parameters and returns values.
Oh no, so a component is the smallest part that you can use, like it's like a small element that you can use in a website, or in your web app.
So it's
Now,
like
the parameters or the profs that I'm talking about is my choice, right? Let's say that I was just trying to hard code it. By hard code, what I mean is that I don't have to use it many times, right? Let's say that I just had to use it 2 times. So I wouldn't just go ahead and create a component and pass like names and description to it. I will just literally write the name and description myself for each of them.
yeah, so
Yes.
component would be like clicking on a button or
So the component is like actually what I think the question, the answer to your question would be answered when I like talk about how I'm going to import it.
Alright.
But basically what happens is that you create like a big component and then you just stash it in like one of the files. Now you don't have to worry about the whole code. So it's just now when you import it, it's just one line saying that import component this, right? Now when I import it, I'll just pass the name, the new image and the price or whatever. So now it is rendering that one component. Now, if I wanted to add 3 more pizzas, right? Let's say that you expand your business and you want more pizzas to be added to your website. So you don't have to hard code everything again. All you do is just use the same component but with different pizza name, different price, and a different path for the image. So what it does is that you don't have to write everything again. All it does is that it just reuses the same style and same format and just fills it with different details that you give it.
kind of like an object.
Yes, kind of like an object. So, okay. So, actually, your question will be clearly answered when I go to where I'm coding this component. So, talking about yeah. So this is basically what that component, and then we return whatever we want to have in that component, and we export it. This is like the normal syntax of how you write a code, how you write like a React component. Now, in this one, I'm just gonna kind of separate this. So I think if you guys remember, we just talked about div. Div is basically like a container, right? Every time you create a div, you're creating a container that doesn't have a space, like that doesn't have a fixed size. The more stuff you put in, the bigger it gets. The lesser stuff that you have in it, the smaller it is. Now, why it is built like that is because, again, in a website, you have a bunch of small components. It's not like just one thing that you write and then the website is built. So for every small element, you create a div, and then you create divs inside divs, because like you can have like a whole page, and then you have like a component, and then in that component you have an image, and then in that image you have a name. So it's like a layer of a tree of divs. So that's what we are doing here. Now this is the main div, and I have given it I have imported, I have written this thing. We just talked about this in HTML. I think Azil talked about this, where whenever we write this in inline and we import the styles, it will basically apply that style to that div. So since this is the outermost div that we have, and we have written class name, and then we're basically styling it here. It is basically applying that style to that div. Now if you see that I have another div here, but it's not that it's not that like I don't have to style this again. If I don't style it, this is just gonna be a normal thing. But since I wanted to style it, I have given it some styles, and now this is gonna work. Now I'll show you how it is working. Do you have anything? Okay. So I'll also like quickly talk about the Tailwind CSS code that I have written here. People try to often ask, how do you remember all of these lines on how to color something, how to add the border, how to basically make the text bold, right? You don't remember it. The rule is always to go to Google, right? But you need to know what you want. So I knew that I wanted like a white background. So all I did was I went to Google. I say background in Tailwind CSS, right? Now it tells me how to write like BG white. So I know that like if I just do BG dash white, it will give me a white background. This is basically that class, and this is the actual CSS property. So if you had to write the same thing in CSS, this is how big of a like code you will write. But since we're using Tailwind CSS, this is all that we need to write to basically get this style. And you have all of these things, this tail, whatever we have here is already predefined. You don't have to code that again. It has already been done. All you need to do is reuse it. But let's say that you wanted to use something that there was not that doesn't exist already, right? You can also do that. But that's you can also build your own. Let's say that bg-white means this, right? If I wanted in one of the config files that I was just talking about, I can just change it to red. So even if I write bg-white, it will still just render red because I changed it to red. But since it's already been coded to like render white for writing white, that's how it's working. So I do this. I know that I need a white background. I do that. I go there and then I basically write bg-white. So it gives me a white background. Again, writing border, what that does is that it adds it basically to that box, to that container that I was talking about. So usually a container is like you wouldn't be able to identify a container on a white piece unless it has a boundary, right? Which is very obvious. So that's why we have added a border here. And then this border's color is border gray, and this 300 number is basically it's like a scale from 100 to 900 on like how bright or how light of the color you want. And then that's pretty much it, right? So let's say wait, where did it go? Never mind. You know what? I just open it in one of the crash. I'm not gonna reload it or anything because if I do that, I'll basically miss all of the files. You know what? Maybe I can put that in my. This also crashed, but okay, I'm not gonna change anything. Okay, I'm not gonna restart it. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, that's how when I did border dash gray dash 300, what it did it added like a box, a border so that I can identify that div, right? So the problem is that I'm not able to open. Anyway, you guys have the project, so you can basically open it later. But doing this is basically what it does is it just adds a border. Now what I've done is I've added rounded dash 3XL. Now this is again something that I knew that I needed, but I didn't know how to do it. So I just went on Google. I asked how can I add a radius, like how can I make the box not like a rectangular box, but like a box with its edges like curved, right? So it told me that all you need to do is just use this code rounded dash 3 axle. Now that 3 axle is how much of a curve you want. If I do just axle, that is just extra large. If I do 2 axle, that is twice the extra large. And if I do dash SM, that means small. So that those things are already predefined. All you need to do is just reuse it.
So you do a rounded box, right?
Yes, to get a rounded box. That's why it is. Then I also wanted a shadow, right? What the shadow makes it look better, and that's like again a design choice. So I added like a large shadow. This is also if I wanted to do SM, it will work. Right now I'm not able to show it to you guys because the project has already crashed. I just don't want to reopen it. And then this P is basically how if you remember to add like a padding or a margin, you had to write padding dash 1 rem or like 10 px or something. But in Tailwind, all you need to do is just write P dash 5. Now, if you just write P, that means that that is the padding on both of the sides, left and right. Now, if I wanted to just do on the left side, I'll just do PL. But if I just wanted to do on the right side, I'll do PR. But if I wanted to do on both of the sides, I can do PL dash 4, PR dash 4. What that would mean is that I'm adding 4 rem values of padding on the left side, 4 rem values on the right side. The same for the margin. So oh, it's fine. I mean, okay. That's still
Yes,
fine.
fine,
The problem is I cannot open it because like if I do, then I just lose the whole project.
Show it on. Go to slides, put it on slide. Right.
Okay, yeah. So if you see this thing, this is your content, and then padding is basically the area right outside your content, and then you can add a border, but we're not adding a border because we don't need it. And then after that, like basically the area outside your padding is the margin.
So the difference between margin and padding is if say you added a color to that div, if you add padding, that area, say 3 pixels will have the yellow coloring as well. If you add 3 pixels margin instead, it would space it out by 3 pixels, but it wouldn't have the styling or like the color of that div.
Yeah.
That's the major difference.
The primary reason why we use those is because we want to separate the elements, right? Because let's say that I had like 2 card components and they were overlapping,
Say
it
right
would just
here.
look bad.
Say, look right here, this looks like a padding of say 5 pixels. You see, this would be padding because you want to still include the styling. And then you see this will be margin of 5 pixels, if you imagine it that way.
Basically that. And the problem, I feel really bad that I'm not able to open the thing that I coded because like that's where I would be able to show you guys what I had done. But I just restart.
Don't restart it.
Okay. And never mind. So I'm not gonna restart it right now. Once I've explained you everything, then I might try to restart it because like if it crashes already, then the whole session is kind of over already. But yeah. So that we talked about padding and margin. Then this flex is basically a way to fill in the area, fill in that empty space that you have. If you remember, we just talked about that table, right? You guys were asking the question. Then div. So a flex is basically like a box. It's again a box where you fill in elements. Now, why we use flex is because we want the flexibility to be able for the app to be able to stretch and relax and change its size whenever we have like a different screen size, right? So here, if you see, I have written flex, then flex column. What I'm trying to say is that whatever elements that I'm going to use, they all need to be in a column, right? So whatever I do, it will and however many elements that I keep adding, it will keep adding them to a column. Now, after that, I've written this thing called this thing items center. What this does is basically put all of the elements that whatever you have in that outer div in the center part of it. Now, I think just me explaining all of this Tailwind CSS classes is not really a good idea because again, this is something that you can go and Google, and that's the normal approach because you don't need to learn these things. All you need to do is just know what you want and then just Google it.
And so Tailwind CSS is just part of React's job.
No, it's not a part of it.
So I think I can explain it.
Yeah.
So we went over CSS, right? Tailwind CSS is it's a framework. or
Yeah,
library.
it's a styling CSS framework.
It's a framework that basically saves you writing all of those long lines of CSS code. Cause if you look at it, you'll have to like reference each of those elements and the file will get like pretty long, like 1,000 lines of code. What this does is simplifies that and tries to make it like an inline way of doing things. You can add this Tailwind CSS directly to your HTML file as well. Just the same way by importing like just importing it using the link and the link tag and then just adding class names to it.
So I think you need a little bit of clarification on how the all things work. It's not that Tailwind CSS is a part of React. Tailwind CSS is itself a whole thing, but you can use it's like a thing that you can use with anything, right? For example, there are many different frameworks to develop the front end. For example, right now we're talking about React, right? Then there's Next.js, then Vue.js, then AngularJS. So we can just use Tailwind because that's my preference. Let's say you just wanted to use CSS because you're really good at it, then you wouldn't use Tailwind CSS because that's not something you prefer. So it's just that these all things are built to cater to different kinds of developers. I prefer to use Tailwind CSS because it's pretty quick, easy for me to do it, and then for me it keeps the code very clean, right?
There's
That's
another one called Bootstrap.
yes.
So it does something similar to Tailwind CSS. It's just the way it's written. Its utility is that you can take like ready-made components and then just try to copy paste it from their documentation. So that's their way of doing it.
You can think of it
So
like this.
It's just a styling framework or tool.
So what happened was like, we had CSS, right? Now it was a very used and a pretty long way to style your elements. Now someone thought, why not just create a way to basically do the same thing, but with smaller codes, right? So they basically created classes for all those bigger lines. So basically you don't need to write all those lines. You can just use a smaller word. So why wouldn't you do that, right? Because it's efficient. And that's why it was like, that's one of the reasons why something like that would be developed, right? Because that's the normal instinct to basically simplify things and make it efficient. So here what we're doing is that using those Tailwind CSS classes to basically style that outer div. The same thing that I did with the internal div that I have for just the image. And again, I cannot show you the image because it's not there. But here what I did was I said w-32 s-32. So what it does is that it tells the image to be of the size 32 by 32 pixels, not bigger than that. That's it. And I said rounded as full. That means that I want the image to be completely rounded. And that's why I had that profile. If you saw when I was starting the project, I'm gonna reload it here though. Let's see if okay. Never mind. So that's basically what Tailwind CSS is, right? Now, if you look at all these elements for the image, I have basically added some styles: rounded, overflow, bottom margin. These are all my design preference. It can be different for you, and it can depend on whatever guidelines that you've been given by the basically the UI UX designer to basically build the app, right? Now, that's one of the elements. Then I have the title and the description. I have written text to Excel. Like all of these things are pretty simple. All I'm doing is that I have an element, and then I'm using this class name to basically use the Tailwind CSS utility to style it. Now I have this thing built. What I'm going to do is I'm going to import. Okay, so now this thing is gone again, and I don't think we're gonna be able to recover it. So I'm just gonna quickly explain. Everything, all of the code that you saw in cart.jsx, I'm just going to call it in my main file that I had, the home.jsx. Then what I do is I just say import cards from, and then the name of the file. Then what it does is that it has imported it. All I need to do is when I'm going to use that component, I say card, and then basically I pass the name of that pizza, the location of that, the image for that pizza, the price of it, and the description for it. So what it will do is wherever I have written that code, it will render that one component with the description, the image, the price, and everything. let's say that I wanted to add 2 more pizzas, what I'll do is I just reuse the same thing. I wouldn't have to write the whole card code again. All I'll do is just call it again, give it the new name, the new picture and new description and new price, and then do it. So basically it's like I have one thing and then I'm just reusing it to basically fill the boxes, and now it's all done. So that was one of the components. For the button code, it's gone. That was the whole thing, primarily for this React. I don't think we're missing anything else. The only problem is that, like, since we've lost the project, then I cannot go over all of the elements. But that's basically the approach of how we do things.
You're gonna have this file uploaded though on,
We have shared it with you as well. So I don't, it's crashed right now, but hopefully later it gets recovered, and then if I am able to recover it, then we'll go ahead and post it on Discord. I think that's fine, Pavel, right? We can post the code if we're able
Yeah,
to.
absolutely.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that for you guys, so you can just get it and basically test it out.
alright,
And again, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us through the Discord, or you can also talk to me personally as well. Do you guys have any other questions? The sad part is that, like, we lost the project, so we cannot go over everything.
so I super helpful, thank you.
Huh?
Always super helpful, thank you.
Sure. You had a question?
I think I would also give like a little like wrapping up statement kind of thing. So today's workshop was all about like giving you guys very basic tools for you to like just kindle that curiosity for you guys to start exploring things and just like walk out with the basic knowledge of how things work, how things are coded in a very basic bare bone way and what each of those things do.
Let's see.
And yeah, that was the purpose. If you guys learned that,
Kind of.
nice.
Right, it's an example, right? I would think let's say the Appium or React. It is going to import it, but how was the project know that we have this?
Yeah, I also wanted to have a bit of a
So
closing
we just
statement, you
write
guys. So we showed you a lot of
that, okay,
cool
but,
stuff
you don't have to write
that you can
because
make.
that
It
whenever you
does
write
sound a
command,
little
code
bit
command,
complex if you
automatically
think
builds
about
a-
it right away,
with that language.
especially
So
if
now
you're
the
not
project
acquainted
knows
with it.
that, okay, you have a-
And especially with all the tools
So
breaking.
let's say that
But I just wanted to say, if you're new to this, don't be afraid to use AI to help you. You know, ChatGPT exists, Claude exists. So like, if you wanna just build out a website, don't feel like you're gonna be cheating or like not being, I don't know, honest with yourself or the industry. If you're just gonna go and ask ChatGPT to build it.
that
Now, if you wanna make changes, and this is, by the way, the purpose that we're showing you how the tags work, how the layouts
why I
work,
need that.
is if you wanna make changes, if you wanna understand what's happening behind the scenes.
Clarify.
You're always free to learn it and explore it, but like, the current tech allows you to create it from scratch. And don't feel bad about being able to do that, because most important part is you being able to showcase your ideas and your projects online. So people can see it, people can participate, and you can get some, you know, good stuff out of it, like job opportunities or just fame, money. So don't feel bad about it, okay? This is an important stuff to learn if you wanna dig deeper, but don't forget that everything is very easy nowadays. So just get right into it and stay motivated. Thanks so much for coming.
For this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So if basically it's like that machine. Also, I also talked about, PG test white, right? So it's already programmed to render like a white color, but if I wanted to change it to red and I'm writing BG